Hey everyone, I'm going to show you a Romanian deadlift with a barbell. So this is the proper way to unrack it. You get real close to the bar, legs touching, and you unrack it. This is how you don't do it. Pulling it from there is purely lower back. We don't want that. We also don't want this, picking it up with a rounded lower back. Now I have the height set at a solid height right near the hips. If it was lower, it would be worse, but pulling it a little bit off from that height is not that bad, especially if it's unloaded. And that's a proper rep right there. Keeping the bar close to the legs, almost as close as possible. Straight back. And now this is a rounded back, which we don't want. Now we don't want this because the Romanian deadlift is primarily a hamstring exercise. So your lower back will still work, but it's supposed to work as a stabilizer, not as a primary muscle group. Now this is a nice proper rep. My back is straight, so you can also have a neutral back, but I like to really pin my ribs down, get the chest up so that I have a straight back and a strong, tight core throughout the whole movement. So now I'm just gonna go through it one more time. This is a nice straight back. Look at the bar, it's super close to my body. It's pretty much rubbing or touching my legs for part of the rep. Some people like to do that for the whole rep. It really depends on your anthropometrics. Now you want to feel the stretch in the hamstrings and you want to squeeze off of the hamstrings to get back up. You don't want your lower back pulling up. That's why I keep a straight back and a pinned down rib cage, which activates your core a lot. Now we're going to show you how to do it with the actual plates on. So a Romanian deadlift, you usually want to start from that hip height position. You're starting from the top because unless you're super mobile, some women can do it, a lot of men can't. Depends on your mobility. But usually the bar will not touch the ground unless you round your lower back, which we don't want. So keeping a straight or a neutral back, or even a slightly extended back, you'll notice here that the bar comes all the way down. It's pretty much grazing my legs the whole way, but it doesn't touch the ground. It's a couple inches away from the ground. And this allows us to really focus on the hamstrings. So a regular deadlift, I would actually bend my knees at the very bottom to get those extra couple inches of range of motion. Because right now I'm maxed out. I'm going as far down as my hamstrings will let me before they are stretching a lot, before they actually feel like they're gonna tear or something like that. So you want to squeeze those hamstrings back up, squeeze the glutes, thrust the hips forward, and lock it out. You don't want to use your lower back for anything other than stabilizing this movement. So when you do a deadlift properly and your spine is neutral, or even just slightly flexed or extended, your vertebrae are aligned one by one in a safe, balanced manner where one's not pushing more on one side than the other. What happens when you're super rounded or even really hyperextended is that it pushes your vertebrae out of alignment, and what can happen is in hyperextension or hyperflexion, they actually start squeezing the discs and protruding the annulus. The annulus is the fluid that's in between your vertebrae inside the discs. Now what can happen if you're crunching on one side and you're squeezing the front side of the disc, the back side can actually protrude out. That protrusion is called a disc herniation. And essentially, whatever fluid is coming out of there, the annulus, presses on your nerves, and that's what can cause serious back pain. That type of back pain can totally be rehabbed and you can eventually get back to normal, but why would you want to get hurt in the first place? I wrote a book on low back rehab. I've had a couple low back injuries myself, and I've helped hundreds and hundreds of people rehab their lower backs. It's not a process that you want to go through if you don't have to. And the thing is, even though you can get back to lifting and restore your movements and your strength, you are slightly more susceptible to re-injuring it again in the future. So you don't want to go there. You want to make sure that you're lifting right. You don't want to round your lower back and pull with your lower back. You want to maintain that straight spine. Just think of all that tension that is being put on those discs when they're not aligned properly. You're maybe deadlifting what, 200, 300, 400 pounds, and all that pressure on one intervertebral disc, you don't want that to happen.